And so it begins again, everybody. Welcome back to another championship season, another season, of course, of Terrace Talk. We're looking ahead to Norwich City's championship opener against Oxford United at the Kassam Stadium this weekend. I cannot believe how quickly it has all come around. I'm Connor Southwell, standing in for our regular host, Adam Harvey, this week, who is away. And I'm delighted to be joined by Oxford United reporter Liam Rice. Liam, thank you so much for giving up 20 minutes of your time this afternoon. I can imagine it's been quite the summer, hasn't it? From Wembley success to looking ahead to the first championship season in this century, really, isn't it, for you guys? How's your summer been? How excited has Oxford been ahead of their championship return?
It's been incredible. It's flown by. Just sort of all the way through from Wembley, from the parade in the city centre just a couple of days after that. And then, Des Buckingham sort of returned to his primary school in that same week to take the championship League One playoff final trophy. And that was a week which just sort of a whirlwind. It's like you sort of pinch yourself during those moments. Like, is this all really happening? And then, of course, the transfer window kicks in, and the U's have been busy. I'm sure we'll get onto how busy a bit later on. And the city is buzzing, really, because, like you just said, it's been 25 years since Oxford United were a second tier side in English football, and I mean, it's as you would expect, the sort of the buzz around the place is there, and I think that really now they just sort of can't wait to get going.
There are, Norwich have had obviously promotion campaigns to the Premier League, and definitely probably the first one under Daniel Farke. You have moments during the summer. You have obviously the release of the new kits, the fixture list coming out is a big moment. Obviously the transfer window, pre-season, etc., etc. Has it got to a stage where it's begun to feel real yet? The challenge and being in the championship, which you said, after such a long time away. I can imagine supporters are really excited, but has it actually sunk in that what you're going into and the prospect of Oxford United in the championship?
I think it'll genuinely feel real probably at 12:30 on Saturday, won't it? When that first ball gets kicked, because right now there's just, like you say, there is so much that's been going on, like there is for every team really. But when that first ball gets kicked, that's when it'll be like, right, here we are. There's now 46 games to go, and sort of obviously getting to a strong start will be desirable, and adjusting to the second tier, because there's a lot of players in the squad that perhaps don't have masses of that experience. But yeah, it'll be Saturday at 12:30 when it all starts to feel real.
How big of a moment is this for Oxford United? Try and obviously you report on the club. You're a lot closer to the club than definitely I am, and other people watching this. How big a moment in Oxford United history is returning to the Championship, and not just returning to it, but that first game at home, 12:30 kickoff, Norwich City. How big of a moment is that for Oxford?
It's huge. You look at the club's history. The one major title being that Milk Cup victory in '86. Obviously, that it was the '80s was sort of the heyday for Oxford. That's when they were at their best. They had a good team in the '90s then, with some local homegrown players and some sort of nippy wingers and good play there. But then, really, since then, like I say, we've had this sort of quarter of a century spell, dipping into non-league briefly in the conference, fighting their way back up the leagues, and to do it now and to get back into, well, I suppose technically they've never played in the Championship, because it wouldn't have even been the Championship 25 years ago, the old Division 1. So to be in the second tier it's huge, it's momentous, and it's, when you sort of place it in the wider sort of grand scheme of things for the club, they have a sort of new ownership over the last 2 to 3 years, which was a sort of slow and sort of gradual process. And then the other sort of caveat and other aspect is, of course, the club in the next couple of years will be without a stadium, without a home, because the Kassam license expires in a couple of years, and they're in that process of trying to find a new ground. So promotion is a huge, these couple of years now feel absolutely momentous for the club.
I was going to say, talk to us a little bit about the journey the club has been on in the last 25 years since they were last here, because you mentioned there's been non-league football in that time. You've had a period of really knocking on the door under Carl Robinson for a prolonged period of time. Didn't ever quite happen. Now it has happened. Just give us a brief kind of timeline as to what the last 25 years have been like for Oxford United.
Yeah, I suppose the lower end of the Football League for a number of years, and then that sort of relegation, into the conference, spending, a small handful of number of seasons at that level, and then, like I just said, fighting their way back up from there. And then I think the sort of the ownership changes and boardroom changes behind the scenes, and sort of started to happen. And like you say, Carl Robinson had a couple of sniffs at it. I think they got to they obviously got to the sort of the COVID final of the playoffs against Wickham and lost in a game where I think really they were the sort of the heavy favourites for that one, actually. But Wickham sort of did the job on them in the empty Wembley. The following season, they made the playoff semi-finals and were beaten by a good Blackpool side. And then they sort of just finished just short of the top six in Carl's final full season. And then season before last was actually a bit of a nightmare. They flirted with relegation, and it was sort of Liam Manning coming in to replace Carl, who'd been sacked in the February, and he sort of got them to sort of safety with a couple of games sort of spare, really. Well, in the final couple of games, and then last season happened, and it's real. It's and they're back.
Yeah, and even last season, like I say, wasn't without its events. Liam Manning, who you said was obviously the head coach of Oxford at the start of the year, left for Bristol City. Then there's Buckingham, who comes in from India, wasn't it? Even though he was part of a City group, I know he's a massive Oxford fan, and it's probably fair to say, and maybe you're better placed to say this than me, but there were probably points where promotion felt a million miles away last season, I can imagine.
Yeah, well, they were flying under Liam Manning. They were top two. They were playing some good football, and that bombshell of him sort of taking the job at Bristol City, and obviously the club was in a great place. They were second in the league. They had the international break in the November to sort out who would come in to replace him. They obviously went for Des. They went for the romance story, but obviously his credentials were there as well. There's no doubt about that, with the success that he'd had abroad and with the City Football Group. And then, it sort of took a little bit of time for it to sort of to get going, because he sort of obviously found himself in a situation whereby you don't want to come in and stamp your authority on a team that's successful. You don't want to, say this is actually how I want us to play, because ultimately a previous style had got them flying, and I think there was a little bit of to-ing and fro-ing on that front. They lost a couple of key players, James Beadle and Stan Mills in the January window, who were on loan. They lost them, and it all form was patchy. I think that's probably the best way of putting it. They were maybe beating the teams they're expected to beat, but then not getting the results against top half, top 10 sides. And then it took a 5-0 battering at Bolton Wanderers away to really for it to really be a turning point. That was then the chance for Des to say, well, actually, right, forget what's gone before. We're playing my way, we're playing my style. And then from then on, they were very, very good, and all culminated in a lovely day out at Wembley.
Yes, indeed, and it was, and at that lovely day at Wembley, it was lovely to see, obviously, former Norwich City FA Youth Cup winner, academy graduate Josh Murphy really shine. Two things really. How big of a shock was it to see him decide to leave and join Portsmouth, and how big of a blow was that to Oxford United? Because that second half of the season, particularly under Des Buckingham, he really looked to have rediscovered the type of ability that I think a lot of Norwich fans will have been familiar with from his time, certainly in the academy when he was so highly rated here. How shocking was it that he's decided to move on, and how big of a loss is it to Oxford?
Shock-wise, I think it probably, the longer it went on, the less it became a shock. I think there was sort of a hope that because they were promoted at Wembley and because he'd scored the brace that that got the result at Wembley, that perhaps he'd signed a contract within a fortnight of promotion, and obviously the longer it lingers on, the more obviously he's talking to other clubs that more offers are coming in. Oxford are having to up their offers, and I think ultimately he's obviously chosen Portsmouth for perhaps a couple of reasons. I think there's family sort of links there. I think his partner is from the South Coast, that sort of way. So that plays a part for family reasons. I think Portsmouth probably offered a little bit more money. I don't believe there was a huge difference between what Oxford were offering at the end. But the key thing, though, I think was the length of the contract. I think it was 3 years with an option, and someone who's 29, that's, you're essentially looking at your final big payday in the footballer's career, aren't you, at that point? So, it wasn't maybe the shot, like I say, the longer it had gone on. Was it a blow? I think time will tell on that one. They've obviously now got 3 wingers signed in the window who are, going to be fine to be Josh Murphy's replacement. And between the 3 of them, there's sort of a nice blend and mix of experience, youth, the wingers are key to Buckingham style, so they are going to have to hit the ground running pretty much from day one to replace Murphy.
Yeah, well, one of those obviously being Matt Phillips, another being another name that Norwich City fans will know well, Przemysław Boeta, who was a Norwich City player until January when he went to join Swansea. How's he looked in pre-season so far? Because I think Norwich fans will remember him for being absolutely rapid, but probably lacking a little bit of end product during his time at Carrow Road.
Yeah, we've only seen him for 45 minutes, unfortunately, and that was in the final friendly against Palermo, which United lost 2-0. He looked good, though. He looked sharp. He played, like I said, the first half from the sort of the left-hand side and gave the Palermo right back a few problems. He put in a couple of very good deliveries into the box, which United weren't just able to sort of capitalise on. And then they noticed it, to be honest, in the second half when he'd gone off. He was sort of the main outlet in that first 45, and then they struggled a bit in the second half, conceded the 2 goals, and I think don't want to say that it was because he wasn't on the pitch that they ended up losing the game, but I think he was definitely offering something in that game, and obviously Saturday he's going to be he'll be licking his lips at wanting to either be starting that one or at least sort of coming off the bench.
What can you tell us about the summer that Oxford United have had, both in terms of their pre-season friendlies and also their transfer activities? Would those inside the club deem this to have been the summer they would have wanted heading into the Championship campaign or the opening day of the Championship campaign?
Yeah, I suppose we'll start on the friendlies. I mean, it's always, every manager says it, doesn't it? It's all about minutes in the legs. It's all about gelling, connections, etc., etc. But they did get some good results. They beat non-league Oxford City and Solihull Moors and looked quite good in both of those games. They lost to Mansfield. I'd like to say that's because I didn't go to that one, so they weren't at the best. And then they beat Southampton 2-0 at the Kassam, and they actually looked really good in that game. They obviously Saints sort of flying, just got promotion themselves to the Premier League, so they played a sort of what you'd expect. They brought the squad really. It wasn't a reserve side or anything like that, and they sort of stopped them playing. Did well. They basically, it was sort of felt a bit like the playoff final against Bolton in a way. They stopped Southampton using the threats that you would expect. They sort of kept the ball well, but weren't able to do much with it. And then they lost to Palermo 2-0 in their final friendly, which was on Saturday. Window wise, busy. 11 players through the door, 10 permanents, and just the 1 loan signing so far. It's been a bit of an overhaul of the squad in terms of maybe getting some of the sort of players that left were on the periphery anyway, and ultimately football's a brutal game, and if you're getting promoted you need to upgrade, and they've definitely done that. I think you ask most fans now, are they done? And I think even if you ask the manager, they still need a striker. They need a striker to sort of back up Mark Harris. I think they probably will be looking for another winger, just because of how key the wide men are in Buckingham's style. And I don't think they'd say no to probably a young kid on loan from the Premier League in the sort of form of a centre back. But yeah, the 11 that they've signed all look good, all look promising, and there's going to be some real competition for places this season.
Yeah, nice sort of blend of signings as well, isn't there? Some experienced ones, some younger ones, some people in between who are at good stages of their career as well. Some championship pedigree, which is what you want. What do you feel in terms of? I guess there's always two parts to this question, isn't there? There's supporters and probably those inside the club. Is it as simple as survival for Oxford United this season, or are some people daring to push their heights a little bit higher than simply just that? Yeah,
I think across the board, if you are to be brutally honest about it, survival has to be the goal, really. Some are obviously aiming higher because you do look across the squad and the talent that's in there, and maybe the sort of signs from the window. It's been a good window, and it's probably not a team that you guys might want to hear, but Cameron Brannigan said, "Why can't we do it in Ipswich?" He said that directly after Wembley, and he sort of repeated it himself again when he signed his new contract earlier in the summer. He said, "Well, why can't they? Why can't they do it? There's, if Ipswich can, then why can't anyone else?" Sort of thing. So, I think that's lofty. There's no doubt about it. That is aiming high, but there does seem to be a feeling inside that they've been written off. I think that's the main thing, isn't it? They've been written off. They are most people's favourite to finish bottom, or at least in that bottom three. And I think they want to prove people wrong. They want to say that, we might not have X, Y, and Z, but we're here to rock the boat a little bit.
Just one thing to ask you before we turn our attentions to the game, and I'm sure being associated with Norwich, we get Delia a lot. So there's always subjects that are thrown at clubs. The Kassam Stadium and free stands. I'm sure it's something that you get quite a bit. Can you tell us a story about why that is how it is? Because I think there'll be a lot of people. Maybe you probably get it throughout the championship this year who come to the Kassam and maybe are a little bit perplexed as to why there's only 3 out of 4 potential stands there.
Yeah, essentially, the long and short of it, I think they obviously got the. They got a 25-year thing for the stadium to have it there. That is what comes up in 2 years in 2026. 3 stands were built, clearly, and construction work on the 4th just never materialised. It never happened, and it's been like that from day dot, really. So. They did look this summer at, they spoke about it internally about, putting up a temporary stand. And I think that was kind of ruled out due to, would it be financially worth it across the season? I think it basically came down to, they could sign a striker, they could sign, a player instead of that money that they would potentially have made off it. And I think really that's the be all and end all, but that's probably more important at this point. Obviously, the 4th stand would only be there for 2 years until the licence does run out of the Kassam Stadium, and then before they go on their sort of adventure to try and find a new home and sort of see off, what has been. It's not got too many fond memories.
That's fair. It's interesting. It's going to be certainly Norwich's. I know they've played the under-21s played there in whatever it was named that week, but the EFL trophy. But the senior team have never played at the Kassam, and the 2 teams haven't met since '99, which is always nice when those type of things happen. So, what are you expecting from the game this weekend, Liam? Because clearly Oxford are the fan base, the players. There is going to be a sense of occasion there for Norwich to come and try and play the party poopers, I guess, essentially. What type of game are you expecting on Saturday?
Well, I think obviously for Norwich, there's maybe a few unknowns as well. Isn't there? A new manager and sort of player departures especially over this week. Some high profile one there. But yeah, I think really though it's probably two teams who play good football, and it should make for the fact it's a season opener, like you've just said, the fact it's the first game for such a long time at the level for Oxford United, that it's managing that emotion and managing that occasion, isn't it? But they've shown they can do that in the playoffs. They've shown they can do that on the final day of last season when they had to fight to get into the playoffs. So I think, in terms of what the game, the fans are gonna absolutely love it, because why won't they? And I think Oxford are, well, like they will be for most games, they are the underdog going into it. But it's at home where obviously they're going to need to pick up as many sort of points as they can. And, I think there's a quiet confidence that, they can, get to a good start. And if, they get a draw out of that, then I think that they will be quite happy.
How do you see it going? What's your prediction as of 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon? I respect that it might change a few times before kickoff.
I'd love to say that, Oxford get off to a flying start and get to a win, get that sort of precious 3 points on the board on day one. I don't think there's any reason why they won't. Obviously, they are coming up against a team who are going to be one of the tougher challenges this season. So I will perhaps go for a very fence-sitting, safe score draw, 2-2, goals at both ends. Everyone's potentially happy.
Sounds good to me, Liam. Thank you very much. Make sure you go and check out Liam's work for the Oxford Mail. You can obviously find that on their website. He'll be following Oxford across this season, and I look forward to seeing him, and also going to the Kassam on Saturday when it all begins again. Thank you very much for watching. We'll be back next week with another Terrace Talk, and we'll see you then.